Hello, welcome back to Fact Time, and it's number 11 now. This is a topic I have been wanting to talk about for a little while here. It is one that I see incorrectly understood in most cases, and I would like to say I understand that it is not the fault of most individuals who have an incorrect understanding of this topic because it is taught incorrectly. I've seen it repeatedly taught incorrectly in at least the American public education system, unfortunately. And that's not to say it's not the private, I just don't know those examples. But I just see this incorrectly done all over, and I think it just stems from some misunderstanding. And that's okay, but we're here to learn, and hopefully this will give you guys an understanding of the accuracy of this topic here, and then I hope you go out and spread it around the world here, so we can stop answering these questions as paleontologists. No, I'm kidding. We love answering questions. We really do. But this is just one we keep on hearing, so it is one that we know is still pervasive in pop culture and media. So we're going to talk about pterodactyls in a sense. Rather, we're actually going to talk about pterosaurs. There is a difference, and this is why. You mostly hear the term pterodactyl. You probably get an image of something like this in your head. I am aided here by a little Lego model I have of a Pteranodon. You've probably heard the term Pteranodon as well. You've almost certainly heard the term pterodactyl. You might have heard Pteranodon. You might have occasionally heard the term pterosaur, and all these things. Ptera what's like, this is confusing. So I get why there's this misunderstanding. This is all very confusing. So I'm here to help try and sort that out. Now, what we're looking at are animals that are extinct. They're in the fossil record. They are reptiles. They are flying reptiles. They are not dinosaurs. I understand you're also told that they're dinosaurs. They're not. They're very, very different. If it's a strictly flying animal, that gives us an idea it's not a dinosaur. This gets very complicated in what the actual definition of a dinosaur is. So if you want to learn a little bit more about that and why these guys are not dinosaurs, please watch my very first video on what a dinosaur actually is. And we'll talk about these a little bit as well. So we won't be getting that into intense detail here. But I want to define a little bit more about what these guys are. So we've got, again, this flying extinct reptile. They come in multiple forms. So we call them pterosaurs because that's the actual scientific term to describe these flying reptiles that are kind of distantly related to dinosaurs. Not dinosaurs again, but related. Okay, so these are the kind of things you see in the Jurassic Park movies, for example. You saw one of these at the very end of Lost World, the Jurassic Park sequel. Jurassic Park 3, these had a major role in pecking some people quite brutally. In Jurassic World, you saw some large ones and some small ones, some big pterosaurs and some smaller pterosaurs. So that was interesting. They got them, they messed some things up. We won't get into that today. Plug if you want. I did a review of all 4 of the first Jurassic Park films back in the day, and I did that on my blog, sciencetoastudent.blogspot.com. .blogspot.com. So if you want to read those deep dive reviews on the Jurassic Park films, feel free to do that. I might get into it more in our videos later, though. Now, onto the term pterodactyl. So, that's the term that you see in the public. That's the term that you see in popular books. That's the term you see in all the children's books. That's the term that I've unfortunately seen in actual school textbooks. It is a valid term, but it means something specific, not just for the flying reptiles. So, let's look at this little doodad here. This is also a pterosaur. Both of these are pterosaurs. This is also a pterodactyl. This is not a pterodactyl. Confused yet? I get it. Okay, so I actually need these. So, this is there's always exceptions to a rule, as annoying as it is to taxonomists and scientists, period. It drives me crazy. But we're going to go with the general consensus, the general spread of the pterosaur species, and this works for most of them. The large ones, the generally larger, are going to be pterodactyls. Now the thing is, there are lots of small pterodactyls too. So the best way to tell if you're dealing with a pterodactyl or not is actually if it has a tail or not. They might have short, stubby little tails, but not a big tail of any real detailed kind. I've got another Lego pterosaur model here. This is also a pterodactyl. This is actually the first Lego pterodactyl of any kind. They had them in 3 colors, reddish brown, this red, and then tan. This is a Jurassic World one. And you can see how even they've got like a nub of a tail, but not a serious tail. These are both pterosaurs, but they're pterodactyl pterosaurs. So there's a group within the pterosauria called the pterodactyloidea. And therefore the pterodactyloid pterosaurs don't really have much of a tail. Short-tailed ones, if anything. Again, most of the large ones are from this group, but that's not the best descriptor. If you do see a gigantic one, it's probably a pterodactyl pterosaur. But yeah, we just take the term pterodactyloid, and it's been shortened at some point. By who, I don't know, but that's just the term that is now used commonly. But the pterodactyloid or pterodactyl pterosaurs are these ones. And then for this other one, now these models are not to scale, by the way, so this one looks a lot bigger, but this is a Rhamphorhynchus. It is not a pterodactyloid pterosaur, but it is a pterosaur. You can see it's a flying reptile with wings. These things are extinct. There's a bunch of other things that we define pterosaurs off of. We won't get into that in this video here. But what do you see here that you didn't see in the other ones that I told you to look for? The tail. This one has a tail here, and it has a long tail. So therefore, it is a pterosaur that is not a pterodactyl pterosaur. This is a good specimen to use because this individual genus, the Rhamphorhynchus, gave its name to the group that all the long-tailed pterosaurs are in, the Rhamphorhynchoid pterosaurs. So you have the pterosaurs as a whole, these flying reptile little guys and dudes and dudettes. Okay, and then you have the pterodactyloid pterosaurs, short tails, or pterodactyls, the short tail ones. And then you have the long-tailed pterosaurs, which we call the Rhamphorhynchoids, or just the Rhamphorhynchs for short. So when you see these flying reptiles in your movies, in your books, in your dinosaur games, or wherever you see them, they're not dinosaurs. They lived at the same time, so they're associated, and that's perfectly fair. They would have been a major part of the skies at that time in Earth's history. But you've got the long-tailed ones, which are not pterodactyls, and you've got the short-tailed ones, which are pterodactyls, but both of these groups are pterosaurs. If you go back to the film Jurassic World with all its problems, it did have the larger pterodactyls, and it did have the smaller Rhamphorhynchs, which they actually blew up. I believe, if I remember it, they called it Dimorphodon in the movie. Something like that. I saw the movie once and never again. But yes, so here's a quick test for you to see what you remembered. I won't know if you get it wrong, so it's okay. Alright. Which is this one? It has a long tail. Is it a pterodactyl? Pterodactyloid? Or is it a Rhamphorhynchoid? This one is the Rhamphorhynchoid. The term you don't know, that you don't hear commonly, that is odd to most people who aren't, paleo nerds, that's the term that has the long tail. So think of the weird word is the one that extends outward, therefore has the long tail. Maybe that's a way to remember it. All right, and we'll test this now. It's going to be kind of obvious because you already saw that one. This one has the short or no tail kind of a thing. Therefore, what kind of pterosaur is it? It's not the rhamphorhynch like we saw over there. This is the pterodactyloid or pterodactyl. All right, so hopefully that explains a little bit about the pterosauria and just the different terms we see. It might seem a little bit kind of picky or maybe even banal to be going over this. And I know that we often get accused of that in science in particular. You guys and all your details and stuff, and you just want to spoil my fun with the movies. And I'm sorry, I'm honestly not trying to spoil your fun. I don't know anyone that's trying to spoil your fun. But for me, I find it more fun to learn the facts, to know the truth. You can still enjoy your movies and your media, and you can still enjoy at that same time the actual reality and the facts. I find it more enjoyable that way. So hopefully you do as well. But take this, spread it forth, my children, please. And have some fun with it. Let me know what you think about pterosaurs, pterodactyls, and rhamphorhynchs, and Pteranodon, and rhamphorhynchus, and all those cool little jazzers that would have been flying around. I wish they were still here, but they're not. Okay, well, before I go cry over the dead pterosaurs, leave some comments or thoughts about your video, about this video here. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.